This is talk 2 in our series on busyness and being followers of Jesus. Last week we saw that God is a worker, and He made us, in His likeness, to be workers too. And so we drew this conclusion, that well-directed busyness is a good thing. Busyness is not the enemy. But there's more that needs to be said, because God is not just a worker. God the worker also rests. In Genesis 2 verse 2 it says, "By the seventh day God had finished the work He had been doing, so on the seventh day He rested from all His work." And in resting, as with working, God sets a pattern for us, who are made in His image, in His likeness. That's why number 4 of the 10 Commandments says this, 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. So just like God rested on the seventh day, His Old Testament people are told to rest on the seventh day too, the Sabbath day. But just stop for a moment. Have you ever thought about why God rested? I take it that He didn't do it because He was tired. God is all-powerful. He obviously doesn't get tired. No, there must be some other explanation for God's rest. I think God actually stopped to enjoy the creation He had made. The creation that, as He began His rest, He described as very good. He looked, and it was exactly as He wanted it. Why would He not stop to enjoy it and to relate to it as the Creator God? And likewise, our own Sabbath rest as humans is not just for our physical well-being. It's not just a good idea because we get tired and need to rest, although that is certainly true. There's something more to it. Just as God rests to enjoy His relationship with His creation, we, His creation, pause from our busyness in order to take time to remember God and enjoy our relationship with Him, as well as to enjoy the good things He has created for us, especially the people He places in our lives. Now, as Christians, we're no longer under the Old Testament law, including the commandment about keeping the Sabbath day. Jesus has fulfilled the law for us, and we're not judged anymore on the basis of how well we've kept those laws. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from the principle behind the Sabbath day law. And I think the clear principle is that it's good to take breaks from our work in order to remember God, to rejoice in Him, and to engage with Him as our God. I think that same principle is what Jesus reminds Martha about in the incident recorded for us in Luke chapter 10. Do you remember it? There are 2 sisters, Mary and Martha, and they have Jesus visiting their home to teach. And Mary sits at Jesus' feet listening to Him. Martha, meanwhile, is stressed and busy attending to the preparations that had to be made with such an important guest in the house. And to be honest, Martha's a bit cheesed off that Mary isn't helping, and so she complains to Jesus. And Jesus says this, "Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." See, Mary has turned aside from the household business to do something better. She's sitting at the feet of the Son of God, worshipping Him by listening to Him. The point is this: there's more to life than work and the material things that work gives us. We need to draw aside from our work and business to rest and remember God and engage with Him as our Creator and Rescuer. And my question for you today is this: do you do that? To what extent has life's busyness crowded out time for those key relationships with God and the people He has placed in your life? Now, that's not a hypothetical question, friends. You'll see on the talk notes that I actually want you to put a figure on it. Say you have 120 hours of awake time each week. How many hours in total could you put down as the sort of God rest the Bible is talking about? And by the way, on the talk notes, I've put some thoughts about what God rest might look like in practical terms. But if your God rest is less than 1/7 of your time, or about 17 waking hours, might that just be a reason to do some reassessment and make some changes to your life? That's definitely a challenging question for me. What about you?